So I'm in the clay studio today, and I've been looking up different ideas of things that I could work on that would be just like pretty fast and not very complicated. So we have a pretty good library of various books on techniques, and some of them are kind of old. We've got like stuff for kids, Ceramics by Slab, these really great 80s and 90s ceramic monthly magazines, which are pretty awesome. And just the covers alone are pretty inspiring. I mean, like, look at this guy. So anyway, they've just got like a nice variety of different hand-built projects, thrown projects, different art, you know. So anyway, after looking through all these books, I opened up this one, which is from the 1970s, and I found this really unusual project using a rock. So basically what you do is you take a slab of clay and put it over a rock and then let it dry to become about leather hard, and then cut it, do the other side, attach them together, add a little bit of texture on the outside, I guess, so it looks even more like a rock. And you've got yourself like a rock face. So I was just really amused by this. It's just like a very unusual project. So I thought it'd be fun to make one today. I've got my clay here, and I'm gonna go out and see if I can find a rock, and we'll just see what happens. Okay, so we found a little hillside. Let's see if we can find some rocks. Here's one, kind of small. Let's see. There's a brick. Too big. Let's see what we have here. Yeah, it's a pretty nice size rock. A little dirty, but it's okay. Anything else? Let's see, here's another. Ooh, let's see. That one's kind of stuck in the ground. Oh, here's a nice one. Ooh, that's a really good one. It's pretty big. Roll it down. And yet a third rock. Okay, so I'm back in the studio. I have my rocks. They're quite a bit larger now that I'm indoors than they looked outdoors, but that's okay. I've got like a small, medium, and extra large. So yeah, I'm ready to roll out my clay. I'm probably gonna use the slab roller and rolling pin just so I can get it nice and thin, because I'm thinking that it'll drape over the rocks a lot easier if it's not too thick. So after I do that, then I can get started. Okay, so I've got my slab, and the clay is a bit on the dry side, so I had to spray it with some water, and I'll probably continue to do that. But I'm gonna go ahead and just cut it down the middle. So I was looking at the instructions, and they want you to do 1/2 of the rock, like the top half of the rock, and then wait for that to get somewhat leather hard, which shouldn't take long with this clay because it's it's a bit dry. So I'll just do that, and then you take that off and do the other side. So I guess I'll choose the easiest looking rock, which would probably be the most round. This one here. And I'm just gonna cut my clay slab down to a size that I think will be appropriate for this. I'm just mostly gonna like cut off some of these rougher edges. And then just go ahead and drape it. And I need my water, so I will go get that. Okay, so now that we have my water, I'm just gonna spray this down and just form it over the rock. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take my needle tool and do a circle all the way around. You know, it's kind of nice working on this rock and not having to cover it with like a plastic bag or fabric or newspaper. Normally when you are draping clay over an object that it has a tendency to stick to, like plastic or glass, you would have to cover it first so that you can take off the clay without it just suctioning to the object underneath it. So if you use like plaster molds, you don't have to do that. And this essentially is kind of acting in that same way where it's not sticking to the clay. Like I can release this really easily. So let's see. Huh, okay. Made a little beret for my rock. So there's the first one. I'm gonna let that sit just for a little bit because like I said, this clay is somewhat dry, so I don't think it'll take long to really have that shape set into it. And I'm gonna go for another rock. Okay, so now that I've got the first part of all of the rocks draped on top, what I thought I would do is I have an ebony pencil here, and I'm just gonna draw a line on each rock so I know how far to measure the other side of clay when I drape it. So it didn't say to do this specifically in the directions, but I'm hoping it'll be helpful. Okay. So I've got that done, and now I'm going to take a look at the directions and see what's next. Okay, yeah, so they just want me to flip over the rock, take this off, flip it over, and do basically the same thing. So I'm thinking that these are about ready. You know, it actually worked to my benefit that the clay was rather dry. At first I thought it was like a major setback because, you know, forming very dry clay over something is going to be more difficult than if it's wet. But I sprayed it enough that I got it to be a little bit more malleable where I could get the form on there, and it's actually holding up quite well. So it's one of those, you know, happy accidents. So, all right, it's kind of nice. You know, I think this method could even be used for making like very organic looking dishes or bowls, serving platters. I always like to keep each process I learn open-ended, you know, so it's like I learned something here and there and maybe can apply a method on top of another one, you know, or there are iterations that you can do with each method that you learn. And I'm a believer that you don't really have to stick to the rules, and that it's more exciting and maybe more challenging at times, but I feel that with a good challenge, then you really learn and the method will stick with you. So anyway, that's just my little bit of advice. You know, don't always stick to the rules. Take it at your own pace and really have fun and be creative with it. Okay, so I've got the second half on each rock. The sun is going down, so if the lighting gets bad, forgive me. There's not a lot I can do about that. So basically what these directions say to do next is to put the two halves together. I'm going to start with my smallest rock, which I believe was the first one that I did, so it should be a little more ready than the largest one that I just finished. So I'm just gonna kind of like eyeball it and see, yeah, that's cool. See how it looks. You can kind of like start to see the shape. Wow, that was a really weird feeling. Okay, so I have, you know, the rock, of course, that has a certain weight to it. This is very similar to it, and I lifted it up, you know, with the same strength that I would that rock. It was quite light. So I'm just gonna rub down the edges with some water and get ready to score them. I am thinking that I'll grab a metal rib just to kind of even it a little bit so that they can fuse together easier. So I'm just kind of smoothing down the rough edges so that when I apply my slip, it can be applied as flat as possible to have a clean seal with the other side. I keep thinking this reminds me of like a leather bicycle seat. My husband has one that looks just like this. Okay, so now I'm ready to apply the slip. And I will score up the edges. So this tool here is kind of neat because you can use it both for texture or for scoring. It has 3 edges that vary in size of their blade. So I'm just going to use this so that I can get my scores a bit deeper than I was with the needle tool, and just more of them. Now in the instructions, it just says simply to put these 2 sides together. I did grab some newspaper just in case I'm concerned that it won't hold up, but I'm gonna try it first, just putting them together. Just a very straightforward method like what is in the book. And then if I am worried about it collapsing, then I will just tuck some newspaper in there because it never hurts. It always just burns out in the kiln. Okay, so the shape is holding up quite nicely. I don't think that I'll need to use newspaper, and I've got it pressed together. I'm just gonna smooth out the edges. And then my next step is to add a rough texture around the entire piece to maintain that rock feel and look. Hey, I'm just going by what the directions say. I didn't make this stuff up. So to maintain that organic texture that we want to have within this piece, I'm just using my fingers to smooth it. Sometimes I use a wooden tool or a tool with like a rubber tip to it. And I tend to think that sometimes it causes more work to correct the marks that it makes with that rubber or wooden tip. You know, it tends to get like a repetitive edge around. Okay, so I've created kind of like a stucco texture on here, and I'm just gonna let that dry and put together the pieces of my other rocks. Okay, so I've got all of the rock pieces made, and the final step is that the instructions, they want to have like 3 little spouts. I'm just gonna pick a place to put them and drill a hole through it, apply it, and then we'll be done. So I made the funny little spouts that they instructed me to do in the book. And, you know, I understand now why they want it to be like dried flowers in these. There's no way of draining water, like if you were to hold real flowers in these. And it's kind of a funky design, and it was fun to make, but I think that what I'm gonna do instead for these smaller rocks is that I'm just gonna cut a hole in the top and just have it be a vase. You know, it's just gonna have a little hole here, and it can be a vase that it's gonna have a hole large enough where that if I fill it with water, I can drain it. And I'm gonna do the same thing with this smaller one. So I'll leave the large rock to be the one that's like, you know, to a T what they instructed me to do. But I don't know, it's pretty funky. So. It's been fun doing this project, and thank you so much for coming along with me. And yeah, maybe you learned a skill. I don't know. If you didn't learn a skill or two, I hope it was entertaining. So putting clay on rocks is definitely an option if you're a hand builder and you're looking for something different to do. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you again next time. Bye-bye.